What if one bomb could erase the world overnight? In the shadow of mushroom clouds, the 1950s gave birth to a new kind of horror. From atomic beasts to scorched earth, these films captured the nightmare of nuclear annihilation. Prepare for radioactive paranoia, apocalyptic survival, and monster mayhem. These are 10 nuclear nightmare movies from the 1950s you cannot miss. Number 10. Panic in Year Zero, 1961. A mushroom cloud rises over Los Angeles, and within seconds, civilization shatters. Panic in Year Zero might be just outside the 1950s, but its soul is pure Cold War dread. Ray Milland stars as a suburban father who loads his family into a car and drives into the hills just moments before nuclear war erupts. But what follows is not a survival fantasy, it is a cold descent into moral decay. The roads are filled with panic, gas stations are looted, strangers become threats. Milland's character becomes disturbingly willing to rob, lie, and kill just to protect his family. Civilization collapses not from bombs, but from fear. This film does not show radioactive mutants or global fallout. It shows what happens when the social contract vanishes and the only law is the barrel of a gun. Filmed on a small budget with stark black and white cinematography, Panic in Year Zero makes every shadow feel like a death sentence. It asks a terrifying question. If the world ends, would you become the monster to save the people you love? Critics were divided. Some saw it as fear-mongering. Others called it one of the most honest post-apocalyptic thrillers of its time. Today, it remains a chilling reminder of how quickly humanity can unravel. No cities need to burn, just trust. And when that burns, the world goes with it. Number 9. On the Beach, 1959. There are no bombs falling in on the beach. There is no explosion, no monster, no mushroom cloud, only silence. That is what makes this film so terrifying. Set after a global nuclear war, the story follows the last survivors in Australia as a radioactive cloud slowly approaches. There is no escape, no cure, just the ticking clock of extinction. Gregory Peck plays a U.S. Navy commander whose submarine surfaces in Melbourne, the last city untouched by fallout. Ava Gardner plays a woman clinging to hope, while Fred Astaire delivers a heartbreaking performance as a race car driver confronting his mortality. The tension does not come from action but from inevitability. Every moment drips with unspoken dread. Director Stanley Kramer avoids sensationalism and instead builds despair through stillness. The ocean is calm, the sky is clear, but everyone knows the end is coming. The people party cry love and say goodbye, not knowing if they have hours or days left. A haunting Morse code signal from San Diego offers a false glimmer of hope that only deepens the tragedy. On the Beach was controversial. Some critics called it too slow, too bleak, too depressing, but others saw it for what it was: a wake-up call. A mirror held up to a world dancing on the edge of nuclear self-destruction. The film ends not with fire, but with a church banner that reads, "There is still time, brother," as the screen fades to black. It is not science fiction, it is prophecy, and it still echoes today. Number 8. The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, 1959. What happens when the world ends and only 3 souls remain? The World, the Flesh, and the Devil dares to answer that question with eerie silence and emotional weight. After a radioactive cloud poisons humanity, Ralph Burton, a black miner, emerges from a collapsed mine to find New York City empty. At first, it seems like a dream. No noise, no people, no civilization. But soon the nightmare sets in. Ralph finds companionship in Sarah, a white woman also struggling to survive in the dead city. Their tentative friendship blossoms, but the film refuses to ignore racial reality. When a third survivor appears, a white man named Benson, everything fractures. Jealousy, racism, and survival instincts clash in a drama that quietly explodes with tension. Shot in haunting black and white, the film turns Manhattan into a ghost town. Streets once filled with taxis and voices now echo with nothing but wind. The loneliness is suffocating. The racial dynamic is explosive. This is not a film about mutants or war machines. It is about the bomb's aftermath on the soul, not just the body. Harry Belafonte delivers a powerful performance as a man torn between hope and heartbreak. Mel Ferrer and Inger Stevens bring complexity to roles that could have been flat symbols. What elevates the story is its refusal to offer easy answers. Love is complicated. Race is volatile. And even after the world ends, human nature survives. The final scene is ambiguous, a walk into the sun or into new conflict. But one thing is clear. The bomb may have ended civilization, but prejudice and longing remain. In the rubble of the world, the flesh and the devil plants a seed of uncomfortable truth. The end is not simple, it is human. Number 7. This is not a test. 1959. The sirens wail, the radios go silent. A single patrolman sets up a roadblock on a quiet stretch of highway. This is not a test. May look like low-budget schlock at first glance, but beneath the B-movie surface lies a nuclear anxiety chamber piece as raw and disturbing as anything made during the Cold War. Highway Patrol Officer Dan Matthews receives word that a nuclear attack may be imminent. With no backup and little guidance, he takes it upon himself to stop traffic and gather a group of travelers for protection. The situation quickly devolves into suspicion, power struggles, and survivalism. The bomb has not even dropped, and already the rot has begun. What makes this film unsettling is how fast people turn. A businessman hoards supplies, a couple tries to flee, a child is abandoned. The patrolman goes from protector to authoritarian. The tension escalates without a single explosion on screen. It is about the fear of what people will do when society frays just a little. Shot with claustrophobic angles and minimalist settings, the film feels more like a stage play of psychological terror than a typical sci-fi flick. The budget limitations actually enhance the story. There are no special effects, no monsters, just escalating dread. This is not a test, slipped under the radar when released. It never had the fame of other nuclear thrillers, but it remains a deeply effective cautionary tale. The mushroom cloud only appears in the imagination. The real damage is in the breakdown of civility, in the lies we tell ourselves about control, and in the fragility of law when fear takes hold. It is not the end of the world that shocks you. It is how fast we abandon what makes us human. Number 6. Kiss Me Deadly, 1955. You do not expect a film noir to end with the end of the world. But Kiss Me Deadly is no ordinary noir. Directed by Robert Aldrich, this brutal, cynical masterpiece takes the hard-boiled detective formula and injects it with atomic poison. What begins as a pulp crime story spirals into something far more terrifying, a radioactive apocalypse in a briefcase. Private Eye Mike Hammer picks up a terrified woman on the road. She is murdered. He investigates, but nothing makes sense. The clues are surreal. People die mysteriously. The trail leads to a mysterious box, a box that glows, that hums, that burns. It becomes clear that what Hammer has stumbled upon is not just a criminal plot. It is nuclear Pandora. This is a film dripping with paranoia. The Los Angeles streets are hostile. The government is invisible. The danger is abstract, but all-consuming. Aldrich paints the world as already sick before the bomb even hits. Hammer is no hero. He is violent, misogynistic, and barely clinging to morality. In his hands, the bomb becomes the perfect metaphor for self-destruction. The ending is pure atomic dread. The box opens, light spills out, a house catches fire. In the original cut, Hammer and his companion likely die off screen, consumed by whatever is inside. It is not a heroic death. It is meaningless annihilation. Later re-edits softened this conclusion, but the original intent is clear. Some knowledge is death. Kiss Me Deadly has influenced generations of filmmakers. From Tarantino to Lynch to Spielberg, echoes of that glowing box and doomed anti-hero ripple through cinema. It is noir, where the femme fatale is a bomb. It is nuclear horror wrapped in detective fiction, and it warns us that digging for truth in the atomic age might just get us all killed. Number 5. Godzilla, 1954. He is more than a monster. He is a scream of pain. Born from the ashes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Godzilla is Japan's nuclear ghost given form. When American audiences saw a rubber-suited lizard stomping Tokyo, they missed the tragedy. But for Japan, this was no joke. It was a cinematic reckoning with nuclear trauma they were forbidden to speak about. The film begins not with an attack, but with a fishing boat incinerated by a blinding flash. Survivors speak of a giant creature. Cities are destroyed not by claws but by atomic breath. Godzilla is not a villain. He is the consequence. He is radiation incarnate, an ancient being awakened and mutated by American nuclear testing in the Pacific. Director Ishiro Honda paints Tokyo not as a playground for spectacle, but as a graveyard. The military is helpless. Science cannot contain it. Families die. Children scream. The destruction is slow and painful. There are scenes of crushed hospitals and radiation victims that mirror real-world suffering. What makes Godzilla endure is its sorrow. It is not just a monster movie, it is a warning. Akira Ifukube's haunting score gives Godzilla the weight of a god. Raymond Burr was awkwardly inserted into the American version, but even that could not erase the film's soul. Japan processed its trauma through fiction and gave the world its most enduring nuclear metaphor. Godzilla was banned on television for a time and heavily censored in foreign markets, but it could not be silenced. It became the cornerstone of a franchise. But no sequel ever matched the pure emotional fury of the original. This was not entertainment, it was exorcism, and it still roars across time. Number 4. Them. 1954. The desert wind blows. A little girl stands in shock clutching a broken doll. Nearby, her family trailer lies shredded by something unseen. That is how Them begins. And from there it explodes into one of the most terrifying allegories of nuclear consequence ever put to screen. It is not radiation poisoning that stalks the land. It is ants. Giant, mutated ants. After atomic testing in New Mexico, the natural world begins to twist. The ants grow to the size of tanks. They burrow underground. They multiply. And soon they threaten Los Angeles. But the real terror is not in their size. It is in their silence. These creatures do not scream, they swarm. The film introduced audiences to the idea that nuclear power could mutate nature itself. Scientists in the movie explain the cause with grim acceptance. The military tries to control the chaos. But for much of the film, they are always a step behind. Them is not just a monster movie. It is a procedural about how civilization reacts when nature fights back. The black and white cinematography enhances the dread. The underground tunnels, the howling wind, the echoing cries of the ants all feel like the earth itself is angry. The film ends not with triumph, but with warning. The nest is destroyed, but the final words ask what other creatures might be evolving beneath the surface. Them was a massive success. It opened the floodgates for atomic monster movies, but none captured the sheer existential dread quite like it. The ants were terrifying, but the fear that lingered was this: if the atom could do this to insects, what would it eventually do to us? Number 3. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, 1953. Before Godzilla, there was a beast, and it did not crawl from the jungle or outer space. It rose from the Arctic, awakened by an atomic bomb test. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms gave the world its first taste of the nuclear monster. It was not just science fiction, it was prophecy with claws. A prehistoric Rhedosaurus is released from suspended animation by a test detonation in the Arctic Circle. It swims south toward New York City, leaving a trail of death in its wake. The military is powerless. Scientists scramble to stop it. But the real weapon in this film is not the creature, it is the message. Based on a short story by Ray Bradbury and brought to life through stop-motion wizardry by Ray Harryhausen, The Beast is both terrifying and tragic. It is not evil, it is displaced. The Arctic was its tomb and nuclear fire became its key, and now civilization must pay the price. This was the first film to link atomic testing directly to monster creation. The fear was not just about what we created, but what we disturbed. The Rhedosaurus is a walking side effect. Its blood is radioactive, its very presence poisons, and even when it is finally destroyed, it releases more danger into the air. Critics at the time called it a thrill ride, but beneath the spectacle was something darker. The beast from 20,000 Fathoms warned that nuclear weapons would awaken things we cannot control, from nature, from history, from myth, and once awakened, they will not go quietly. It paved the way for a genre, but more than that, it dared to suggest that the greatest danger of the atomic age was not the bomb itself, but the arrogance that came with using it. Number 2, 1951. There are no crowds, no military response, no cities burning, just silence. In Arch Aubelaire's haunting film, 5, the world ends quietly and almost completely. 5 people remain, survivors of a nuclear holocaust scattered across the American landscape. No explanation, no solutions, just 5 broken souls clinging to the idea that life might still matter. Released just 6 years after Hiroshima 5 was the first serious post-apocalyptic film of the atomic era. It features no mutants, no machines, no grand action sequences. Instead, it confronts something even more terrifying: human behavior in the absence of society. The survivors each represent different worldviews: a pregnant woman, a bitter racist, a contemplative architect, a laborer, and a man of faith. Their fragile alliance cracks almost immediately. Shot in eerie isolation on Aubelaire's own property, using natural light and barren landscapes, the film captures loneliness with devastating intimacy. The quiet is oppressive, the ruins are real, the performances are raw. Aubelaire does not ask how the world ended. He asks whether we deserve to rebuild it. Conflict erupts not because of survival needs, but because of hatred. One survivor cannot tolerate the presence of another because of race. Another spirals into delusion. There are no epic speeches, no heroes, just damage and pain, and the possibility that the worst parts of humanity will outlast the best. 5 was a commercial failure, but it influenced decades of nuclear cinema. It showed that apocalypse did not need spectacle. Sometimes all it takes is 5 people and the silence left by millions more. The end of the world is not always fire. Sometimes it is just absence, and what we do with it. Number 1. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. A flying saucer lands in Washington, D.C. Soldiers surround it. A lone figure steps out unarmed. Moments later, he is shot. That is how the world greets peace in the day the Earth stood still. The film that dared to call humanity the danger in a nuclear age obsessed with enemies. Klaatu, an alien ambassador, arrives from a distant federation not to conquer but to deliver a warning. Earth's violence and rapid atomic progress are no longer just its problem. If humanity continues down the path of war and destruction, other worlds will intervene. He is accompanied by Gort, a towering robot with the power to annihilate cities with a glance. But they are not the threat. We are. The film is not subtle. It was released at the height of Cold War paranoia and cuts through it with moral clarity. Klaatu walks among us. He sees fear, confusion, and kindness. He finds allies in scientists and in a widow's son. But the institutions of power reject his message. Violence begets more violence. The ultimate standoff comes not with tanks but with an ultimatum: grow up or be destroyed. Director Robert Wise delivers a restrained but haunting vision of Earth on the brink. Bernard Herrmann's eerie theremin score injects alien unease into every moment. And Michael Rennie's performance as Klaatu is one of quiet intelligence and sadness. The final speech is unforgettable. There is no victory, only a choice: join the peaceful universe or face obliteration. For 1950s audiences, that message was revolutionary. For today, it still echoes like a siren. The Day the Earth Stood Still is not just a sci-fi classic. It is a moral reckoning. The bomb is not the villain. It is the mirror. These 10 films were not just entertainment. They were warnings from a century that flirted with extinction. Monster cities and silence all told the same truth. The atom changed everything, and cinema never looked back. Watch them, remember them, because the nightmare only ends when we finally learn from it.